Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is Travis Wright. I'm the Director of Product Management here at Cireson. Thank you everyone for joining today. We have an exciting presentation to show you about the new Cireson portals that are about to be released, and today we're going to cover the topic of how to customize the Cireson portals. So with that, let's just kind of dive right in, and first of all, I'll just give you a status update on the portals. I know everyone's excited for their release. We have released the release candidate build to our beta customers earlier this week. I believe it's on the 31st of March, and that release has gone out to our nearly 100 beta customers to get some feedback from them and see if we can find any more last sort of release blocking bugs. So we're working through the small number of bugs that have been reported this week. So far there's only been 3 that have been reported that we've already produced fixes for. Provided that we can fix all of the bugs that are reported by customers this week, we will release the RTM build of the portal maybe as early as the end of this week. Sometime early next week we can get the RTM build out to all of our customers. So it's been a journey to get there, but we're just about there, and we're excited to get the release out there for everyone to enjoy and benefit from. So we're getting very, very close now. Okay, so today's topics, we're going to cover a number of different things about portal customization. First, we'll cover the various settings that are available in the web.config file and have a look at what changing each of those does in terms of the user experience of the portal. And then we'll go through the administration settings. We'll talk about how to create a custom logo. And then we'll go into CSS styling. For those of you that aren't familiar, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and that's how we style the portal in terms of the colors, the fonts, layout. Those sorts of things are all controlled by CSS. And then we'll talk about string overrides, and lastly we'll talk about a new feature, custom tasks. So, oops. We're getting a little ahead of the game here. So with that, let me just dive right into our web.config file. So if we were to look at the self-service portal here, there's a number of different settings that we've got available to us. So the first one here that we're going to talk about is the label that you see on the login page here. And it's also shown in the header at the top of the page once you're logged in. So the way that we change that is we go to the web.config file, and there's a label here called application title. We can change this to sort of whatever we want. So we can change it to, for example, Cireson Service Portal. And then we just save the web.config file. Now one thing to know is that every time you save the web.config file with different content in it, that will cause the application pool to recycle and the website to restart. So we don't necessarily need to do that each time here manually, but that's something to know, is that every time you do that it will cause a log out of everybody to happen, and they'll have to log back in again. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. So you can see now that the label has changed up here to Cireson Service Portal, and once I log in, we'll see here on the home page here that the label will have changed. Okay, so now it says Cireson Service Portal. Okay, next that we want to talk about here is the cache files path. This is where the location of the cache files are at. There's nothing really sort of about configuration here, so I'm just going to skip over that one. The next one is the default incident template. So this is the name of the incident template that you want to use as the default for when somebody is creating a new incident in the portal. In order to get the name, the easiest way I've found to do it is to use the SMLets PowerShell module. So what you can do is you can go to the portal, you can find the template that you want to use and get the display name of it, in this case, networking issue incident template. And what I can do then is I can switch over to my PowerShell window here, and I can call get SCSM object template and then pass the name of the template as part of the display name parameter here, and then pipe that to a format table display name and name. So when I run that, it'll go and verify, okay, here's the display name, here's the name of the template that I want to use. I can just select that, right click to copy it, and then I can paste it into here. and then I just save the file. And now when I go over here to the portal, again, it's going to force me to log out and log back in because it restarted the website. Okay, so now I can click on New here and click Incident, New Incident. And when the incident form is brought up, you can see that the networking incident template is being applied to this form. So you can use any template that you want as the default incident template. The same thing applies for the default service request template. So you can kind of create your own custom template if you want, or use another template that's shipped out of the box. The next setting here is the language code. So by default, out of the box, it's ENU for English. And if we want, we can change it to another language code. Now, one thing to be careful of here is you want to make sure that the cache builder is also configured to have the language that you want to have, because what's going to happen is the cache builder will generate these files here. These are the enumeration cache files, and so you want to have your cache builder generate the language files for the language you want to display in the portal as well. And as long as you have these two files in here for the language you want to display, then you can change the language to something other than English. Like in this case, this will be French. So if I refresh here now, okay, you can see that all the text strings have been changed to French. Okay, so what you want to do also, you notice how when I first loaded it up it was English. If I hit Control F5 to refresh the browser cache, it'll pull down the right language strings. So we have to do a Control F5 to refresh the browser cache. Okay, so now we'll switch it back to English. Okay, now the next one here is the service catalog language code. So this is a new feature that we added in the RC build. And what this does is this allows you to have your service catalog in multiple languages, and then you can create a website for each language and then only display the service catalog content for a particular language. So when you go into the Service Manager UI and you go to the Service Offerings view, you can open up a given service offering, and here's where you can choose the language. So depending upon which language you choose, it'll be either a two-letter language code like English, which is EN, or it will be a four-letter language code like English United States, which is EN-US. And then what happens is Cache Builder pulls those service offerings into the cache, and we pull in the language code. So in this case, the test services has a language code of EN, and the other service offerings do not have a language code defined. So now if I go to the web.config file, and instead of choosing star, which would pull back all the service catalog content regardless of the language, which is the default setting, if I change this to EN, and we now go in here and try to go to the service catalog, we'll see that it will only show the request offerings that are contained by the test offering. Okay, so here's the test services service offering, and the request offerings that are defined in there. I have lots of other service offerings and request offerings, but they're not being shown because they don't match my language code parameter that I showed here. So by default, that's star, but if you want to, you can, for a particular instance of the portal site, you can have it limited to only show service content from a particular language. The language file's path you would probably never change, so I wouldn't recommend changing that. The remember me expiration days, this is how many days to remember someone when they choose remember me on the login page. Grid view record cap, this is a max number of items that's returned anytime we have a grid view. So for example here, if we were to go to, actually let's go to the all active work items view. Okay, so the all active work items view has 28 items in it in my particular case here. If I were to change this to 5 and then refresh this view, we'll see that the number of records that's returned is capped to 5. And that's true of all of the work item views here. And it's also true of the search results. It's also true of query result prompts that you see in the service catalog request offering forms. So this is kind of a global setting where you can limit the total number of items that are being shown. And that's a configurable value. I'd be careful about setting it too high just because you don't want to kind of overload the system with running gigantic queries against either the cache or the service manager database. The next one here is service catalog items per page. So this one here, we can limit that, for example, to 2. And then when we go into the service catalog, it'll only show 2 request offerings per page. If you want to, it's probably more likely that you want to increase the number from 25, you go up to like 200 or something. If you wanted to try to have it on more on one page. So here you can see that we've got 2 request offerings per page. Okay, and the next one here is the navigation options. So this allows me to control the visibility of each of these navigation pane buttons here. So there's a setting for each of the navigation pane buttons here. So for example here we'll change the show service catalog to false. And then we'll go to a different view here. So this would be useful in cases where maybe you didn't want to show all active work items to everybody that's logging in, or you wanted to hide the service catalog for now because you don't have any service catalog content, or there's lots of reasons why people want to hide and show these different options here. So you can see that the service catalog button is hidden now. And the next thing we could do is also show or hide the new button in the drawer down here. So this panel down here is what we call the drawer. So we'll just refresh the page here. So all these features are really driven by customer requests. So you can see the new button is now missing from the drawer down here. So we can't see that option. So that's a way, if you want to force people to only create work items through the service catalog, you can hide that button. By default, this button is shown, but it's only shown to people that are in the analysts group. So you can control who has visibility to it by using an Active Directory group and populating that. Or if you just want to turn it off completely, you can use the web.config file to change this to false and hide it that way. Okay, so that's kind of a quick tour of all of the settings that we have available in web.config for now. Part of the reason why we put these settings into web.config instead of the admin settings page or someplace else is because this gives you the flexibility of having different configuration settings per website. So you could set up multiple websites on the same server or different servers, each with different configuration settings. And if you wanted to, they could even share the same cache. And in that way, you can have the flexibility. Like, for example, one customer asked me about how they could have a different style for each site. Like each DNS site that they had. So like a different team wanted to be able to have different options and things like that. So what I told them is, what you would do is you'd set up a website for everybody else except for that DNS site. And then for that DNS site, you'd set up another website and just direct those people to use a different URL. And that way you just have a lot more flexibility in terms of what you're exposing out there. So, and the same is true of CSS as well. So as we get into it, if you're setting up multiple sites and directing people to different sites, you can have different language settings, you can have different CSS settings. All of that stuff can be controlled that way. So you can provide a different user experience to different groups of people within your organization. Okay, so now let's do a quick run through of the admin settings here. Okay, so the admin settings are settings that we consider to be more kind of global settings that you'd want to do for your entire management group, and it would apply to all of the websites that you're using for the portal. So here we've got the license keys for the analyst portal and self-service portal. Over time, we'll expand this list to include other license keys for other products that we will be including in the portal, like the HTML knowledge solution, for example, that we've just recently started working on. The work item grid refresh interval, this is how frequently to refresh any of these work item views here. So they'll automatically refresh and pull that data out of the cache, and this allows you to control how frequently that happens. Here you can choose whether or not people are allowed to create incidents, service requests, and change requests from the drawer menu here. And if you want to, you can also limit it to a particular Active Directory group. And then down here we have similar sort of permissions that you can control for marking manual activities as completed, failed, or having the permission to edit an activity, and you can narrow that down to a particular Active Directory group. And then the same is also true of review activities. These are sort of more global settings that would apply to all instances of the Cireson portal running on any website. Okay, so next let's look at how we add custom logos. So what we'll do for that is go to our website folder. So for most of you, this folder would be C iNet Pub Cireson portal. Since I run many instances of the website, it's right here for me. But you would go into the images folder, and out of the box we ship a 1-pixel transparent login logo. And so that's just kind of there as a placeholder, and so what you can do is just sort of rename some file that you have that has a logo in it as login.png, and then when somebody goes to log into the portal, the logo file will show up here. And so you can sort of use whatever size logo file you want. I would recommend using sort of a transparent background logo here so that it kind of fits in here. And you can kind of do whatever size you want, put any padding you want into the image, and do that sort of thing in order to get it to look nice on here. So that's how you do that. And then I'll show in a moment here how you can also add a logo to the upper left corner here next to where it says Cireson Service Portal here. You can actually also add a custom logo here. Okay, so with that, I believe next is we're going to get into CSS styling. So to begin with there, we will talk about doing CSS style overrides. So kind of the easiest way to look at this is you kind of need to be familiar with CSS. You may have to enlist the help of a web developer in your team or something like that to help you get started with this. But kind of the easiest way to do it is just to inspect elements in the UI. So for example, I could look at, so right now I'm running Chrome. You just right-click on any element in the UI and click Inspect Element. That'll bring up this F12 developer panel here. And you can see for this particular element all the styles that are being applied to it that you can see here. So if I wanted to, I can change the color of this thing, for example, to red. I can see what that looks like. So you can see that the color is now changed to red up there. So I can sort of test things out in this F12 developer panel here to see what things would look like if I were to change a particular thing. And then I could take this CSS class right here and I could go into the UI and change that. So one of the things we'll do here is, like, let's just inspect this element here. We can see that, so let's sort of use a real-world example that I had from one customer. The customer was asking me, how do I change the font size? I want it to be bigger, because what we feel like what you guys are shipping out of the box is too small. And I said, okay, well, no problem. Let's talk about how to do that. And so what you can see here is that the font size is being specified here on the body element, and it's specified as 11 pixels. So if I were to change this to something like 15 pixels, you can see that the font size here has increased quite a bit in the grid. So if I want to override this permanently, like right now I'm just kind of overriding it and testing it here. If I want to, I can go into here and I can go to the custom.css file, which is located inside of content custom. Here's the custom.css file. So this is where you would keep all of your custom CSS in this custom.css file. And kind of what we do here is we apply the custom.css file last, so that any CSS that you define in this CSS file will override any CSS files that we ship out of the box. So now what I can do is I can go into here and I can create a new body element here, and I can say font size 15 pixels and save that. And now when I go and I do a Control F5 to refresh the browser cache, you can see that the size has actually changed here. And I can do pretty much anything. I can change the font family, for example. So let's do something quite different. Save that file, Control F5, and you can see that the font is now changed. So what you'll want to do is just, wherever you feel like you want to override our style, just look up what styles are being applied to which elements and classes in here, and then override that in custom.css, and you can override anything we've got. Now, one thing you'll want to be careful of is every time you go to install a new build of the Cireson portal, you'll want to take any content that's inside of this custom folder here and save that off someplace else, replace all the files, and then put your custom content back. So just be careful of that, you don't overwrite your customizations. It's probably a good idea just to back up these files as well, just in case. It's not a bad idea, right? So now, since these CSS files are part of the website files, as I mentioned earlier, you could have multiple instances of the website files for each website that you have, and then you could have different custom.css content in each one of them. That way you could have, each website can have its own style. So that's a quick example of how to do custom CSS. Now, we want to make this a little bit easier for people to do kind of some of the more common things, and so we've created custom.less here. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, less is a CSS extension technology that allows you to variabilize CSS attributes, basically. So we can see here that we've kind of variabilized the color scheme here. So the primary color, we can change this to something like red. And then what we can do is grab all of this CSS content here. This is actually less content. And as the instructions tell you up here, you go to this URL and you paste in the CSS, or sorry, the less, and that'll generate CSS over here that you can then copy. So less is sort of a pre-compiled version of CSS, and then you can copy that CSS from that site out into your custom.css. And you can see that the kind of the way that this works is that the secondary color is, or sorry, lighter color is like a lighten of the primary color. So it takes whatever the primary color is here and lightens it by 20%. And that's how you end up with, kind of the lighter color ends up being something like this, right? So now that I've kind of saved all this into custom.css, I can now refresh my page, and we see that everything is now changed to a red color scheme. So that makes it really quick for somebody to just go in and quickly theme something with maybe a corporate color or something like that that's standard for your company. Now we've also made it possible to essentially take theme packs and make those sort of shareable, if you will. So we've provided a couple of theme packs out of the box. One is for IT Monkey. So I can just copy the CSS file content that we ship out of the box. It's right here. There's also the Hello Kitty one we'll see in a minute. And I can just copy and paste that into my custom.css file, save that, and when I refresh this, we'll see the IT Monkey color scheme and theme, right? So here's an example of how we can put a custom logo in the upper left corner here. So the way that I do that is, you look at the custom.itmonkey.css here, and it tells you to go to this tool right here. And if you go to that tool, you can upload any logo you want there, and it'll turn it to a base64 encoded image, and then you just copy and paste the binary of that image into the CSS file here. And that way we can generate a logo here that shows up in that left-hand corner. So if we wanted to, we could also take a look at the Hello Kitty theme. So we just kind of pop this into here, save that, Control F5, and there's our Hello Kitty theme. So one of the things that we'd like to announce today is that we're going to be having a theme contest. So for those of you that are inclined to sort of start having fun with CSS overrides for the portal, whether that's to create something fun and sort of silly, just if you have some spare time to sort of play around with this and learn CSS a bit, or if you create a corporate theme and it is actually a theme that you plan on using but you want to share it with other people. Kind of the idea behind this theme contest is just to kind of get people communicating, sharing ideas on how to sort of theme the portal. and kind of share back and forth between people, and just kind of build a theme pack library, if you will. And so we're going to run this theme pack contest. We're going to run it through the month of April. So at the end of April, we'll choose a winner of who has sort of the coolest theme out there. And whoever the winner is, we'll ship them enough IT monkeys to start an inter-office monkey fight. So if you guys aren't familiar with IT Monkey, he's basically this stuffed animal toy thing that we use at our events. And he has these arms that are made out of surgical tubing. And so you can stretch his arms and launch them up into the air, and he makes a screeching sound, and it's pretty fun to have around the office. So we'll ship you guys basically a box of those, and you guys can kind of have fun with those. So please share those out, and we will create basically like a theme pack library on our website where people can go and download this library of theme packs, and then they can use that either as a starting point, or they can just apply a theme that looks good to them, and hopefully it'll be kind of a fun contest as well. So to submit your theme pack, just tweet a screenshot of your theme and a link to your CSS file, like on a OneDrive or something like that, and mention @Team Cireson, and we'll take a look at each of those theme pack submissions, and we'll pick a winner by the end of the month. Okay, so the next item we want to go over is string overrides. So, we know that out of the box, people, we localize all the content of the UI into where we have 15 languages now, but we realize at the same time that not everybody uses the same terminology as everybody else, and so we want to give people the flexibility of overriding any string in our UI, whether it's the navigation pane or column headers or any of the labels on the forms. Any of that sort of thing can be overridden given the way that we kind of manage our strings. So let me just show you a little bit about how this works. So for each language, let me just go here to so for each language, there are 3 files. So we'll just kind of look at the English ones here, for example. There's a .data file, a .system file, and a .override file. The .data file is a file that's generated from management pack display strings that are provided out of the box with Service Manager. So we basically go through those management packs, and we generate this file that has all of the class display names, all the relationship type display names, all the property display names, all the enumeration display names, and so on. So a lot of that stuff is already just kind of localized for us, and we just generate it from the Service Manager management packs. The .system file is where Cireson puts any strings in there that we need in addition to what's in the data file for displaying things on the portal. And the .override file is where you can include strings that you want to override. So let me kind of just show you quickly how this is done. So here's the data file. So you can see that a lot of the things that you would expect to be coming out of the box are already in this file here. And then the system file is where we see all of the strings that Cireson uses for its portal. And now what I'll show you is like how we could override the display string. So let's say, for example, that instead of saying configuration items on the menu here, we want it to say config items. So all I do to do this is I just copy this row out of this file. I go to the strings.enu.override file, and I paste that row in there, save the file. Now, I do have to restart the website in this case because the string cache is built on website start. So I'm going to restart the website. And now when I go to log into the website again, you'll see that configuration items here will change to config items. Okay. Where did I go wrong here? I did restart this website, didn't I? Oh, hello. I didn't actually change the string. There we go. Okay, so we'll change it to actually show config items. Okay, restart. Okay, so now it says config items. And that goes for any string that you see in the portal. You can override it. So this is also really useful for cases where the translation is not what you would expect. And I know there's a lot of translation issues, especially, not a lot, there are a few translation issues that come out of the box in Service Manager. And so that allows you to kind of override even those out-of-the-box display strings that come in Service Manager. And another thing that we've found is that sometimes the translation people for Microsoft, they'll translate a word like incident, and they'll translate it into some word that means incident in that particular language. But the reality is that the people in that company are familiar with ITIL concepts in English, and they actually want to call it an incident and not the localized name of it. And so that gives you the flexibility of even overriding particular strings where you want to use the English version of a particular string. So, and then if you want to go back to the way it was out of the box, you just delete whatever content is in here and save it, and you're back to kind of the way it was. So, okay. What else we got here? Okay, next we're on to custom tasks. So with custom tasks, I want to just kind of talk about what the idea behind this is. So what we want to do is we want to enable people to have the flexibility of creating extensions to the portal to do custom things. And what we're going to start out with here is the ability to add custom tasks to the task panel on the forms inside of the portal. So you'll be able to add in your own custom tasks there. You'll have your own display names for the task, and you'll be able to execute custom JavaScript whenever those tasks are clicked. And that JavaScript will have access to all the form controls on the form, and you'll be able to have access to our web service APIs to get and set data inside a Service Manager. And just an example of something you could do there is you could pop up custom windows that you want to maybe capture some additional information in, for example, and you have full control over the HTML and the CSS that are inside of that pop-up window that comes up. Now, we've been working with one of our closest partners, Concurrency, who is in the kind of the early adopter program with this particular feature, and they're building out some custom tasks for one of their customers. And so I've invited Christopher Menk, their systems engineer that's been working with us today, to join us on this webinar and just give us a quick tour of how they're leveraging custom tasks to do some custom things for their customer. So with that, Christopher, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha. Thanks, Christopher. All right, so I'll go ahead and let you take control for a moment while you present.
Great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
I am not seeing it, but that could be because I'm a presenter. I'm not sure. I'll ask Jackie if she can see it.
It says I cannot take control.
Well, why not? Let's see. Are you... What name are you logged in as?
Christopher Menk.
Christopher Menk. Oh, I see. You're under staff, probably. There you are. Okay. So, make presenter. Okay, how about now?
Yep. Okay. I should be showing my screen now.
Got it.
Okay, great. Okay, so as Travis said, my name is Christopher Menk. I'm a senior systems engineer with Concurrency, and we've really been very blessed and fortunate to work directly with Travis and the folks over at Cireson in working with these custom tasks. So what we've noticed in a lot of our customers that we implement ITSM solutions for is they like a good set of tools available to them out of box, but then they're also looking to be able to customize their experience based off of unique business requirements they may have. So what Cireson has done inside the web console, and we've seen a little bit of it, is given the ability to create these custom tasks. So as you can see, I'm in my Concurrency environment. You can see on the right side here that I have a couple of different tasks that don't come out of box. And what we're able to do within some of these custom files is create these tasks and then add specific logic that you need to customize your experience for your users. So within the content custom directory within the Cireson portal, so Travis touched a little bit on it where we were getting into the custom CSS. So just like in any website you build, the key building blocks are CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. So we actually have access to these three files. So the custom task, custom.js, custom CSS, and then the custom task template HTML. So it allows us to sort of build these additional tasks and windows so that we can meet those specific business requirements that people have. So I'm going to show you a little bit of how this is functioning, what we're starting to build out for our customers, and you can take a look at how that works. So here's an example of just some custom CSS, some real basic stuff, just creating some different styles that we can use for the windows that are created. And then also an example of some of the HTML code that we've put together for these tasks. So it's really nice where you can sort of create different divs for the different sections of HTML that you're going to code against, and then use that in your custom JS file that allows you to put different JavaScript, jQuery, and all that to be able to interact with Cireson's API. So it's what Cireson has done is given us access to their API site so that we can talk directly to the data that's being added in the cache. So if you want to look up different enums, bind to different controls, look up data, manipulate that data, whatever you want to do within the confines of the console, we're able to do that. So for example, I have this task here where we're actually able to show related knowledge articles. So what we have is a data model in the background that can see, based on the classification selected by the user, we can go and look up the URL that's in Service Manager as a knowledge article and look that up. So you'll see an example here where we're actually running a post command to the API and using the SDK query syntax. So this is the same syntax that, like when you build a view and you look inside the management pack, you can see how you can query the SDK using this sort of query format. And then what we can do is take that data and run a post against the API and get data back in JSON format. And then you can actually parse that data and make different decisions on what's displayed on the form, what different people have access to, or whatever your business requirements are. And then you'll notice here that anytime we see applib forms task.add, this is where that gives us the ability to create these different tasks and then add logic inside of them. So here I have one I just called escalate, and it's just simply logging the word escalate to the console. So however you want these different tasks to function, you can do different things and add your own custom JavaScript. And that's what's really great about a product like this is you're given a certain feature set, but then you're able to customize it to your environment based off your requirements. So if I go back out to the console, I just have an example incident that's open, and we have a number of things. So here's my show knowledge link, here's my escalate, and then I also have this show routing table. So that's the one I'm going to show today. So what we have in the background in Service Manager defined is that when a user picks a certain classification, we have a number of CIs in the background that can take that classification and relate it to these other CIs to sort of determine where exactly the incident should go for a support group. So as opposed to sort of trying to build that out or making an analyst have to understand what that is, we can put that logic in the web console in a custom task and let the user see that. So if I click on the show routing table, what this will do is actually do a post against Cireson's API, pull that data back, and then we can use JavaScript to sort of, and that HTML and the CSS files to bring back this table of data that's important for the analyst. So for example, what you're seeing here are the different support groups that this ticket should go to according to the different tiers and where it is in its current route. So it's really helpful to be able to display this dynamically and allow the analyst to take certain actions on it. And you can see that we've sort of taken the similar styling that Cireson has, the default styling, so you can kind of give that same seamless experience to your users. And then just to also show you is you also have access to, in the custom forms, is to be able to pull data from this form. So I know Travis showed it a little bit. If we go into the developer mode, hitting F12, we can get access to things like the console. So if I were to click the escalate button, you're going to see how the word escalate pops up here in my console. And then you can also access things like what is in the different items that are on the form, so you can get more of a dynamic experience with how JavaScript is pulling that data. So here we're going to get the affected user and get his name, and then we can see that I'm the affected user of this incident. So being able to take these custom tasks and build your own sort of JavaScript and posting and getting data back from the API really gives you that great experience of being able to customize it for your requirements. So we've been very fortunate in being able to work with Cireson. We look forward to where the product is going in this aspect, and it really gives you a lot of flexibility within the tool to achieve your goals. So Travis, thanks again for letting us present today. Not sure if there's anything else you'd like to see, but
yeah, that was it. That's great. Great. Thanks so much, Christopher. It's been a pleasure working with you guys on this, and Concurrency has always been a great partner. So. Good. So that just hopefully gives everybody sort of a flavor for what we can do with custom tasks. One of the things that we'd like to do is take what we've done with concurrency, but also potentially start doing this with other partners and interested customers. So if you have a requirement to be able to do this kind of thing and you would like to partner with us on the development of this particular capability, just please contact us. We'll probably add another 2 to 3 kind of early adopters to this particular program, trying to get custom tasks working. So feel free to reach out to us and we can start working with you as well. So with that, let's kind of take a look at what's coming in the future. So what we have planned now is we're going to release V1 here very shortly, and then we're going to have a V1.1 release that will come out in, let's say, maybe like 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. And one of the things that we want to add to the V1.1 release is support for form layouts. And what I mean by form layouts is the ability for you to declare how a form should be laid out. And so using some simple syntax in basically what amounts to a text file, you'll be able to declare which tabs should be on the form, which sections are on each tab, which controls go in each row and each column within that section. For each control that's on the form, you can specify whether or not it's required. That sort of control that people I know want. And then one of the really cool features we're going to try to add is the ability to associate form layout files with Active Directory groups and have a prioritization of form layout files such that different people that are accessing the portal and looking at incident forms or service request forms will actually see a different layout of that form depending upon which group in Active Directory they're in. So that should be a really interesting feature. I know it's a big demand from customers is to have that control over the layout of the forms. And so that'll be coming in this V1.1 release. As Christopher mentioned, we have some web services that we're working on, and we've provided those to Concurrency so far, and we'll continue to expand the scope of those web services in terms of what they do. And those web services sit on top of our middle tier layer and allow you to get and set data from Service Manager. So this gives you the flexibility of using these web services, whether it be from custom tasks like Christopher showed, or you might want to build custom content that will show up in the portal. It also would be useful for building custom, like a completely different UI that you wanted to have, but you still wanted to have a web service layer and didn't want to have to necessarily build the web service layer. You could use ours. And then also it'll be useful for things like developing mobile applications so that you can expose these web services to the internet and then have mobile applications accessing those APIs over the internet. And then the custom tasks, those are working as we saw today, but we want to continue the development of that and then make it a fully supported feature in the v1.1 release. So that's what's coming up next in terms of customizability of the portal in the v1.1 release. So we're looking forward to that. And with that, that's sort of all the content that we wanted to cover today. If there's any questions that people have, feel free to put those into the question panel, and I will attempt to answer those. So let's try to keep it focused on customization questions. I know there's probably a lot of general questions people have, but let's try to keep it focused to customization for now. And for anyone that is planning to just go ahead and leave at this point, we appreciate you joining the conversation today, and look forward to your feedback on the portal once it's released. So let's see. We've got our first, whoa, okay, now we have a lot of questions. Okay. Okay, so the question is, have you considered putting in a GUI-based admin screen that can pull that information and then update the config file without the admin having to run the PowerShell commands directly? Yes, I mean, in general, we could provide a GUI for doing these kinds of things. What it really kind of just comes down to is a matter of prioritization, and given that most of these config settings are things that you do once and you never change again, spending time creating an admin UI around it versus other things that we have to do, it ends up being kind of a lower priority. So that's why we haven't done it. We certainly consider it, but it's just a matter of priorities. Okay. Does the portal work with pass-through authentication? Yes, all you have to do is enable Windows Forms authentication and enable Windows integrated authentication and disable Forms authentication. I was using Forms authentication today so that we could show the customizations to the login screen, but normally we would use single sign-on. Yes, this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted to our Vimeo account for viewing later. When setting the language, can you display two languages at the same time? So the cache builder is capable of generating two languages at the same time, but each website is limited to a single language right now. So if you had people that wanted to access the portal in different languages for now, you would set up multiple instances of the website, each focused to a particular language. We are looking at in the future making that a user configurable option so that each user that comes into the portal can choose which language they want to use. So we'll add that here at some point in the future, but for now it's one language per website. Is the incident and request templates likely to be a GUID? It will be a GUID if it's a template that you've created from the Service Manager console. It'll probably say something like object template _ GUID. If it's a template that ships out of the box or ships from an ISV partner like Cireson, oftentimes those will have more human readable names to them. Can we have a trial version? Absolutely. So please contact us at team@cireson.com and we can get people set up with trial versions of this. Can we please get the rest shown in IE and not Chrome? Kind of too late for that. You can't change the... Oh, you didn't? Okay, yeah. Can you change it to where analysts see it one way and customers see it another way? So out of the box in V1, the analysts see different content, absolutely. So people that are analysts will see things like the My Work Items view, the My Teams Work Items view, the All Work Items view, config items, etc., and end users will not. So there's a whole bunch of different things that are different for analysts versus end users out of the box. And then as I mentioned earlier with the form layout files, when those come in v1.1, that'll give you even more control over what people see as well. So you kind of have to get in and play around with the portal to see what the differences are between the two. Can I run a custom task from SCSM itself, like SCSM remote control that will take FQDN from the incident CI and connect there? So because the custom tasks are executing JavaScript, you're kind of limited to what JavaScript can do. So you'd have to figure out a way that JavaScript could do whatever it is that you're trying to do here. JavaScript is not generally very good at executing executable files on your local desktop, so remote desktop may not be an option there. There's probably ways around it. We'd have to sort of take a look at it. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Will concurrency make those customizations available to us? No, I don't think that would be appropriate because they're specific to the particular customer that they're working with, but we will provide some examples on custom tasks that people can do. Is it possible to change the out-of-the-box graphics in the side menu bar? If you replace the image files that we ship out of the box, yes, you could have custom image files there. You'd have to make sure that you sort of save those each time you did a new deployment of a new version of the portal, though, since we would overwrite it. Will the web console support auto refresh, or perhaps include licensing for the view building app? So yes, it does support auto refresh. The interval is configurable as we saw in the admin settings. For end users, I need to hide specific fields when they open my request. The assigned to property should be hidden. So assigned to is already hidden by default for end users in forms. And then if, like I mentioned with the form layout files, you'll have full control over the form. So, you know, for now, think of it that we're shipping sort of a hard-coded form for end users and a hard-coded form for analysts that have different content on them. And we try to do our best to hide the things that the end users should not see in the forms. But in the future, you'll have full control over that so that you can choose which fields you want to show to the user. Announcements, that's a vFuture feature. We don't have it yet, but it will come at some point in the future. Can we make some of the fields on the form not editable? So the form layout files will give you control over whether or not each given control is read-only or not. So that's a v1.1 feature. What is the level of HTML knowledge is needed, beginner or expert? That really kind of comes down to what you want to do. So if you want to do something really complicated, then of course you would need to have more experience. If you wanted to do something fairly basic, then basic HTML knowledge would be fine. What versions of IE browsers are supported? So we support IE 9, 10, and 11 now. We support Firefox 25 plus and Chrome 30 plus. Is it possible to hide some fields in the incident form in the portal for the end users? So I think we've already covered that. Support caching. So I think the question here is about, I mean, we cache everything. We cache all the JavaScript files, we cache all the image files, we cache all the CSS files, all that sort of thing is cached. And then we do a lot of server-side caching as well. Documentation level on changes that were shown. So we have documented quite a few of these, almost all of these customization things that we saw today are documented in the deployment guide. Probably the one thing that's not documented yet is the custom tasks, and that's because it's sort of still in development right now. But as we get closer to the release of v1.1, we will document that as well. Is there an ability to selectively show create request on behalf of in the service catalog? So currently that is shown only to analysts. In the future, we do have a work item to make that more configurable than just analyst or not. Will the cache builder be implemented as a service? Yes, we plan to implement it as a service. We will try to make it for the RTM release. We need to work on it this week. If that's something that we can get done, then it will be included. If not, then it'll come in the 1.1 release. Okay, so I think you may have already mentioned, how do I change the font on the main page? For example, I want to change service requests with lowercase to service requests on the main page in capitals. Trying to think of exactly where you're talking about. I'm not sure, but you could override that in strings. So wherever it is you're talking about, you would just override it in the strings files, as we showed today. Okay, or the... Okay, there's just a lot of duplicate questions in here. I'm skipping over now. Can you add your send email app as a task to the portal? That's definitely in the queue of things to work on, maybe for v1.1. What about a customized pop-up? Announcements are important to report outages. Absolutely. I mean, I would just wait for announcements to come out of the box. That's something that we'll add sooner than later, so that'll be there soon. Licensing is done on a site license basis. So the way that works is we have 4 tiers of pricing depending upon the size of the organization. And we just try to keep it really simple. There's just a one-time licensing cost depending upon the size of your organization. And then there's a support and maintenance on top of that. And then if you buy the entire total management suite, there's a software assurance that you can also purchase, and that makes it possible for you to get all new future apps that are added to the total management suite for the period of the 1 year that you buy software assurance for. So definitely contact our sales team for more information on licensing. Will the first version include both the analyst and the end user portal? Absolutely. The form layout, does that include request offerings as well? We will provide more advanced options for request offering layouts, but it will not be a part of the form layout thing that we're talking about here. It'll be done someplace else and a little bit more in the future. Okay, so that's the end of all the questions that are in the queue. So thank you everyone very much for attending our webinar today. Here's my contact information, how to contact Cireson. If you have any questions on licensing, you want to get trial keys for any of this, you want to talk about licensing, you have any questions on what we saw today, you want to maybe be a part of the V1.1 feature set that we're working on with concurrency, please contact us. We look forward to talking to you. And other than that, thank you very much for attending the webinar today, and have a great day.